obviously the breaking news is a big win, or at least perceived big win out of the Supreme Court for President Trump in the case whether he has presidential immunity and whether presidential immunity is even a thing. Now we find out it is, with pretty overarching means. People were asking, well, who were the dissents? Because we said it was a 6-3. You had Kagan, Sotomayor, and Jackson all coming through with a dissent there. But my dad, Jay Sekulow, is joining us right now. I just want to get your initial thoughts. People want your feedback of what this means and what it looks like for the future for some of these President Trump's cases.
Well, number one, it's a huge win for the president, former president, because the court not only recognized immunity, but they said there's presumptive immunity. In other words, it's presumed that the acts the president are engaged in are official acts. And then they went through a litany of the indicted facts and said that most of those were official acts. There's only a couple that that John Roberts is sending back to the trial judge for an evidentiary hearing. And even on those, it's presumed, he says that in the order, in the opinion, it's presumed that those are official acts. By the way, the opinion tracks very closely to the brief that we filed, and it also cites frequently to the cases we argued for President Trump 4 years ago at the Supreme Court, Trump versus Vance and Trump versus Mazar. And both of those cases are cited extensively justifying the presidential immunity here. Let me tell you something that a lot of commentators are not picking up. This will end the case in Georgia against President Trump, because remember, that conversation that serves as the basis of that lawsuit, it was strictly the phone call to Brad Raffensperger. Well, under the court's analysis, that is not only presumed official act, that is an official act. So I think Fani Willis's prosecution of the president is dead.
As we look at this opinion and you couple it as well with the Fisher case that came out last week, and even on this broadcast you said the case for Jack Smith is dead there, but now you even have the broader statute he was charged with, the conspiracy to defraud the United States, and that is one of the specific charges that the court seemed very nervous about, especially in light of future presidencies. And when you look at this coupled today with what we have as well as last week, do you think that the district court even takes this at this point, or does Jack Smith have to refile in some way to try to parse this out?
Well, I think there's going to be motions to dismiss filed on the basis of the two conspiracy claims that are the basis of the decision that came out last week. So, and he can't simply refile charges. He has to re-impanel a grand jury. So I think we'll effectively, and to our audience, those cases, Jack Smith's hurdle now is, I think it's insurmountable. This is a typical of what Jack Smith does, by the way. He overcharges everything. And this is another example of that.
Let's go ahead and take a phone call. A lot of people are calling in with some questions about sort of legality and the future of some of these cases. Let's go to Angie, who's calling on line one. She's in Colorado, listening on the radio. Angie, welcome. You're on the air.
How does this case, the immunity, affect the ruling on July 11th that Merchan's going to hand down?
So for the Judge Merchan's case, how will it affect, really, how does it affect in general a lot of the cases? Dad, maybe you could break that down a bit. How does it affect the cases moving forward, or the ruling that's coming, or even the sentencing that's coming? Does this play a factor?
Yeah, so like as I said, I think the Georgia case is totally dead, I think, as it relates to President Trump. So I think that's over with. Merchan's was a state criminal proceeding on business records. Probably doesn't apply to that at all. I think the same's true with the New York AG case. Not likely to apply here. It'll raise issues that I'm sure will be litigated. But I think the Georgia case, which was the next pressing case for the president, is got serious trouble. And I think Judge Cannon's case, the document case, it's also got serious trouble, because he's going to argue, the president will argue, that those records were taken in the context of official acts of the presidency. Remember, they were moved down before he was still in office.
I think people keep bringing up, there's a lot of comments coming in. A lot of people are encouraged by this. And obviously, up until last week, there was dealt out some wins, some losses here. You had a big buildup of the Supreme Court where there's been a lot of pushback, whether that is on Justice Alito, whether that is on just the court. We even saw it in the debates where President Biden said, well, he's packed it full of hardcore conservatives. But then we've seen some kind of switches in there. We've seen some wins and losses. It does feel like we actually have more of a balanced Supreme Court than the left maybe wants you to believe.
last week, Logan, the case, I think the example of that was the case involving the January 6th protesters, because you had Justice Jackson join the conservatives and Justice Barrett join the liberals. And, of course, the conservatives carried the day with Justice Jackson's vote. And she went and wrote a separate concurring opinion spelling out the importance of the case for First Amendment purposes, which, again, was something we argued. So you look at all of this, and you've got to realize that these are not necessarily falling on ideological lines. But I think this has been I will tell you this. I believe this is a death blow to Jack Smith's litigation. Between Friday's decision or Thursday's decisions and today's, it's a death blow to his case in Washington, D.C.
When you think of the broader implications of this, and this is one thing that I know we reference many times, that if you can start picking apart and even the broadness of the conspiracy to defraud statute, things that you don't like about what a president has done during their presidency, and then rogue prosecutors, as you've discussed many times, decide to go after a former president or even a sitting president building a case while they're in office. In one part of the opinion, it says an enterprising prosecutor in a new administration may assert that a previous president violated that broad statute, referring to Section 371. Without immunity, such types of prosecutions of ex-presidents could quickly become routine, enfeebling the presidency and our government, would result with a cycle of factional strife. Do you think that even President Biden and maybe even former President Obama are sighing a sigh of relief at this opinion?
Of course they are. I mean, I couldn't believe that he allowed the Solicitor General to argue there was no immunity, because it affects him. It affects every president. And by the way, that was very similar to the line I opened up the oral argument with in 2020 when I said 2,300 prosecutors going after a president. I said just 10% of those went after him. It'd be 230 cases. So Justice Roberts picking up the same kind of thought when he said that it allows for a new administration to come in, and then the Department of Justice starts going after the previous administration criminally. So, yeah, of course, I think at the end of the day, they're bringing a sigh of relief. I mean, the Biden administration's got other problems right now, and that's determining whether he's going to even stay in running for office. But this decision today, I think, is really good for the office of the presidency, no matter who that president is. We've always argued that the president has a unique role because it's the only branch of government where one person is the branch, and that's the executive branch, the president.
If you're new, by the way, because a lot of people are joining us right now on YouTube, and we can always tell about 50% of the audience doesn't subscribe. They're brand new to our show. We do this show each day, Monday through Friday, have for many, many years. You can be a part of this community. It's great. Click that subscribe button. We appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up. Do whatever you need to do to get involved. Hit us in the comments. If you don't even know what to say, let me know where you're watching from. We like to see, because you know what? American politics and American news actually gets really ingested all over the world, and we get to see that on platforms like YouTube and on Rumble, where people are watching everywhere that they can, and they get their comments in. So it's always cool to watch. But again, we love to hear from you. We are right now kicking off today our Life and Liberty Drive, which means all gifts when you support this work, because we can't do this broadcast, we can't do our legal work. None of it happens without your support. And that only happens really when you say, I am going to dedicate to give a financial just anything, whether that is $5 once or whether that is $5 a month or $50 a month, whatever it can be. But really in these special months, and today kicks off the Life and Liberty Drive, your gifts are doubled dollar for dollar. And it is only through you and your support and our ACLJ members, as people that give on a one-time basis, regularly, or people that we call ACLJ champions. ACLJ champions, almost 21,000 of you are ACLJ champions. Those people that are dedicated to giving to the ACLJ on a monthly recurring basis. If you are one of those champions, I thank you. If you have been a champion, thank you. We'd love to have you back. Do that right now. Go to aclj.org. Have your tax-deductible gift doubled as we launch today. It's the big kickoff day of our Life and Liberty Drive. Keep us in the fight. aclj.org.